कमरे में
Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you are watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories. US President Donald Trump has said that Ukraine should make a deal to end the war with Russia because Russia is a very big power. After meeting Vladimir Putin in Alaska, Trump has told President Vladimir Zelensky that Putin offered to freeze the front lines if Kyiv ceded all of Donetsk, a key Russian target. France, Germany, and the UK will host a call Sunday with allies on the ongoing peace efforts over the war in Ukraine. As Germany says the US is ready to join security guarantees, Canada, Turkey, India, and South Korea all respond positively to the talks, highlighting this moment as of one of momentum. Russia has said its forces destroyed 300 Ukrainian drones and struck storage sites for Ukraine's Sapsan missiles using warplanes, drones, and missiles, according to the local defense ministry. Moscow has claimed improved positions near Zoloty Kolodiaz in Donetsk, while pro-Ukrainian maps indicated Kyiv's troops had contained the advance. Protests are taking place across Israel with calls for a hostage deal and an end to the war in Gaza. This comes as Israel says Gaza residents will be provided shelter equipment. Air Canada has announced it will resume flights today after the Canadian Industrial Relations Board Jobs Minister Patty Hajdu's directive ordered the end of a strike that suspended over 700 flights. The CIRB has instructed Air Canada flight attendants to return to work by 2 p.m. Eastern Time, marking the first walkout by thousands of crews since 1985. A magnitude 6.0 earthquake has struck central Sulawesi, Indonesia, at a depth of 10 kilometers, injuring 29 people, including 2 in critical condition, according to the local National Disaster Mitigation Agency. The quake shook Poso Regency and surrounding areas with Indonesia's position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, making it highly vulnerable to seismic events. Erin, the first hurricane of the 2025 Atlantic season, has been downgraded to a Category 3 with maximum sustained winds of 125 meters per hour, according to the U.S. National Hurricane Center. The storm, now 330 miles east-southeast of Grand Turk Island, had earlier reached Category 5 strength with winds of 160 mph before weakening. At least 344 people are dead in northwest Pakistan after 2 days of heavy rains and flash floods. According to local officials, the deluge struck with lightning, landslides, and cloud bursts in the deadliest downpour of this monsoon season, with more bodies missing. At least 25 protesters have been arrested in Israel amid nationwide protests and road blockages, according to reports by Israeli media. The protesters were demanding a hostage deal and an end to the Gaza war. 11 of the detained demonstrators were arrested in Tel Aviv for allegedly violating public order and impairing freedom of movement on the roads, according to Israeli law enforcement officials. Reports suggest that all roads are now open to traffic. However, protesters in Jerusalem are currently blocking a key tunnel on Route 16 leading to the capital. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Selena Ryan. She's a political analyst, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you, Selena, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. What do you think the recent protests, growing protests in Israel of demanding a hostage deal and end to the Gaza war reveal about the current public sentiment?
Hi, first of all, thank you for having me. So throughout the entire war, when these kind of protests took place, the Arab media, which is associated with Hamas, like Al Jazeera, Al-Aqsa TV and so on, they showed us that all the protests inside Israel are presented to the Arab world as proof of support for Hamas and its positions. So basically, what these protesters are doing right now, they are literally mouthpiecing Hamas propaganda, and they're helping Hamas and strengthening Hamas' position in Gaza, because they say, look, the Israeli people are with us, which is extremely wrong. Second of all, we can see from the drone footage today that only a very small portion of people protested. It was like huge dozens of people in each road just blocking the roads and burning tires. It wasn't like hundreds of thousands like they hoped. The show up for the protest today was almost nothing compared to what they hoped to achieve. They hoped to block, like paralyze the country, paralyze the traffic, and this did not happen. It's unfortunate that democracy in Israel is understood as such and used against us. We also know, as it has been revealed recently, that these protests have been sponsored from the Biden administration for years. And I'm pretty sure that Qatar has a big hand in it as well. They're not like genuine protests, like people going out in the street and protesting. It's a machine. It's a machine that calls people to protest, that brainwashes them through propaganda on social media, WhatsApp, Telegram, websites. There's a lot of money involved in this campaign. It's not something organic. It's not an unrest that comes from the civilians just naturally.
And Selena, how might these protests, you're saying that even though it is not as big as it shows in media, is there any influence on the Israeli government's approach to this current situation?
Not at all. Not at all. I don't think the government is influenced by this in any way possible. Like, we're still moving forward with all the war goals and as it's established. The only thing that these protests do is strengthening Hamas' position and hindering our efforts in winning this war and dismantling Hamas in Gaza.
And with road blockages reported and arrests escalating, what are the potential consequences for civil liberties in Israel?
I think we could see like what we've seen in the past 4 years since these protests have started in regards to a reform, like a judicial reform that the current government wanted to pass. They're pretty much unhindered because the country and the judicial system in Israel is inclined to the left. So these people actually have too much liberty, I'd say. And they obstruct our liberty. For example, I have to go now to Jerusalem soon, and I don't know if I can travel, and I don't think this is fair. So, yeah, I don't think they're obstructed. On the contrary, I think the other side is obstructed from like going on with our days, because of these people.
And Selena, like, could the government's handling of these protesters affect public opinion, both domestically and internationally?
Can you develop a bit more? Handling in which way? I don't understand.
So the reports of government's handling of these protesters, even some being arrested. So do you think this handling of protesters are affecting public opinion?
It shouldn't, because applying the law should be the normal thing to do in any country. And I think obstructing the roads and burning tires in the middle of the road and jumping to fight with policemen or with the soldiers, it's just against the law. So it's common sense to apply the law and arrest these people or remove them from blocking the roads in the country.
Thank you very much, Selena Ryan. Always nice hearing from you. Now we move on to our next news. UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has again defended the ban on Palestine Action, insisting the group is more than just a protest movement. Writing in The Observer, she said the group claimed responsibility for incidents that led to serious charges, including violent disorder and aggravated bullying. With the CPS confirming a terrorism connection, police say another 60 people face prosecution for supporting the group, adding to more than 700 arrests since the ban on July 5th. Cooper pointed to attacks on defense sites, including RAF, Bryce, Norton, and Elbit systems, arguing such actions go far beyond legitimate protests. Now, UK Home Secretary Yvette Cooper has again defended the ban on Palestine Action, insisting the group is more than just a protest movement. Writing in The Observer, she said the group claimed responsibility for incidents that led to serious charges, including violent disorder and aggravated burglary. With the CPS confirming a terrorism connection, police say another 60 people face prosecution. Now, for this discussion, we are joined by Keith Vaz. He's a former UK minister, joins us live from London. Thank you, Keith, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, in light of this UK's Home Secretary's defense of the ban on Palestine Action, what do you think this reveals about current UK government's stance on balancing national security and free speech?
Good afternoon, Asma from London. I think that all these terrorism orders are taken very seriously by both the government and the opposition. However, it's a matter of fact, and I've been present during many of these bills going through Parliament. They tend to go through on the nod. If the Home Secretary decides that this is a group that needs to be banned, there's very little opposition, which is put by others in Parliament. So the fact is, these orders go through very quickly. This ban came into effect on the 5th of July, and as you've said, there have been 700 arrests. However, Palestine Action and those supporting them make it very clear that they are not organizations that are interested in direct action, that they actually are groups that support particular causes. So they are not the Al-Qaedas of this world, or ISIS, or any of these other groups. And that is why they've taken the Home Secretary to court, and this matter will be discussed by the judges in November of this year. In the meantime, you've got a lot of police activity around this, 700 arrests and 60 people who've been charged. So they'll have to go through the criminal justice system at a time, of course, when the public are very concerned about the use of police time. Crime is on the increase, and people would much prefer the police to be answering calls when, for example, they have burglaries or other violent crime of that kind. So this is a controversial move by Yvette Cooper. I'm sure that she has taken it very carefully. But the fact is that there is a lot of pushback from parliamentarians, from the group itself, from individuals. Some people can just be arrested if they wear a T-shirt which says, "I support Palestine Action." Another case of a man who was blind, who was arrested in Trafalgar Square and in Westminster for actually having a T-shirt of this kind and holding a placard. So these are matters that are causing a lot of concern in this particular area. There is always this balance, but it is a fine line to decide that you should ban an organization of this kind. So the courts in the end will decide on whether or not this is going to stand. It's being judicially reviewed, which is a very important and serious court procedure.
And Keith, now given the UK government's claim of terrorism connection that tied to Palestine Action as well, how should the international community respond to movements that may blur the lines between activism and extremism?
This is a big question. I think people should be allowed to protest. We in Britain have this amazing freedom of speech. I know that Vice President Vance does not agree that we support freedom of speech. Well, actually, we do. There is the rule of law in the United Kingdom, and therefore people speaking freely should be allowed to do so. They should be allowed to protest. People will say, what next? What if you have a demonstration in support of Gaza and some people are wearing T-shirts or carrying banners that says Palestine Action? So this is a very serious matter. It's about civil liberties, human rights, but also security. And that's why we give the Home Secretary Yvette Cooper, who I know is a serious politician who takes these matters very serious. I've known her for 20 years. She wouldn't have taken this lightly, but the effects of a ban can be seen. You can't keep arresting a lot of people, hundreds of people, charging hundreds of people if they just support a group of this kind. Clearly, if they were saying we support Al Qaeda or any of these ISIS, any of these terrorist organizations, we would understand this. They need to be banned. But freedom of speech is essential to all pro-democracy countries in the whole of Europe. And I think they'll be watching this very carefully indeed.
And last but not least, building on your answer, could this legal approach lead to unintended consequences, potentially strengthening support for the group in some quarters?
Well, of course it will. I'm sure it will. If you ban something, there is a tendency for people to want to join. I'm afraid it's human nature, especially if you think it's an unreasonable ban. In the end, you have to police by consent. Policing in the UK is based on the consent of the public. And if the public don't support a particular position, then you do have problems. And, you know, it's not fair on the police. They are stretched, doing lots and lots of other things, to be arresting people such as the blind gentleman who had a T-shirt saying, "I support Palestine Action." Clearly, he is not a political activist, but he believes in a particular cause. Clearly, what they also did was wrong. They have damaged aircraft by spraying them with paint, those kinds of activities. That's criminal damage. There's no doubt about that. But whether it should be banned under terrorism legislation is something quite difficult. So I think we'll be watching with interest the decisions that are being made by the court in November. My view is they should not prosecute until that decision has been made. It's only a pause of a few months. We're already in August, so it's a couple of months, and then we will know for ourselves what is happening.
Yes, indeed. Thank you very much, Kate Vaz, for always joining us and sharing your insight all the way from London. Now we move on to our next news. China has handed over the third of 8 new advanced Hangar-class submarines to Pakistan as part of Beijing's push to bolster Islamabad's naval power and expand its presence in the Indian Ocean, India's backyard. The launching ceremony for the third Hangar-class submarine took place in Wuhan, central China's Hubei province on Thursday. The second of the 8 submarines being built by China for Pakistan was delivered in March this year. This comes in addition to 4 modern naval frigates China supplied to Pakistan in recent years as part of its drive to strengthen Pakistan's naval power amid the Chinese Navy's expansion in the Arabian Sea, where it is developing Gwadar port in Balochistan and extending its presence in the Indian Ocean. According to sources, Pakistan's Deputy Chief of Naval Staff Project 2 Vice Admiral Abdul Samad said during the launch of the third submarine that the Hangar-class submarine's advanced sensors and cutting-edge weaponry would play a crucial role in maintaining regional power balance and ensuring maritime stability. According to a recent report, China supplied over 81% of Pakistan's military hardware. China delivered the first batch of multi-role J-10CE fighter jets to the Pakistan Air Force in 2022. Complementing the JF-17 fighters jointly produced by both countries, Pakistan deployed these jets in recent conflict with India. Now for this discussion, we are joined by Gautam Mukherjee. He's a senior reporter, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you, Gautam, for joining us today. Welcome to NewsX World. Now, given this, China now supplies over 81% of Pakistan's military hardware. How does this increasing dependency affect Pakistan's geopolitical standing and autonomy?
Well, Pakistan is allied either to America or to China. It has no money of its own. China supplies military equipment to Pakistan at a huge discount in order to use Pakistan as a force extender, force multiplier, particularly to harass India. So that is how that is placed. It has very little to do with autonomy. Autonomy is not feasible because Pakistan is, to all intents and purposes, bankrupt. It has been receiving constant loans from the IMF to just go from week to week, month to month. Every aspect of its economy is badly affected. Agriculture, industry, manufacturing, you name it, and all of it is doing badly. The people of Pakistan are suffering. The army, however, which is all-powerful, is well provided for because whatever amounts of money are required for the army and its activities, that money is siphoned off and placed at their command. It is also a highly corrupt armed forces, and they have stored a lot of the money abroad for when they retire. So it's a shambles, but it is what it is.
Thank you very much, Gautam Mukherjee, for sharing that insight. Please stay with us as we come back to you for our discussion again. Now we have a breaking news. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz is set to join Zelensky in Washington on Monday for a meeting with President Trump to discuss the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Now for this discussion, we go to Joshua Barnes. He's an anchor and correspondent at NewsX World. Joshua, what more can you tell us about this breaking news that has just come in?
Well, yes, Suma, this is absolutely huge news in context of the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. We were live and brought you all of those updates as that meeting between Trump and Putin took place. A day after we had information that Trump would then be hosting Volodymyr Zelensky at the White House on Monday for another meeting. But we now have further updates about who will also be attending, and there is a longer list. We've had confirmation, of course, as Asuma brought you, that German Chancellor Friedrich Merz will be attending. Just now we've had information come through as well that French President Emmanuel Macron will also be attending. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is also set to be there, and Finnish President Alexander Stubb. Now, I spoke earlier in the day with Glenn Grant, an ex-advisor to Ukraine, who said that he wants the Finnish president to be there because of a relationship that the Finnish president Stubb has with Donald Trump. Now, this is clearly a big shift and a huge move in terms of the ramifications of discussions surrounding the Russia-Ukraine deal. Europe and Ukraine, isolated and not involved in these discussions between Trump and Putin. Clearly, they now will be a key part in these talks. Talk about momentum from Trump, talk about potential concessions on territory, something that Europe and Ukraine have been staunch in saying they will not allow. So Trump will have the opportunity to speak with several leaders. There'll be 5 confirmed there at the moment. Just to reiterate who they are, of course, Volodymyr Zelensky travelling over to Washington, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, Emmanuel Macron of France, and we have Alexander Stubb of Finland, and Ursula von der Leyen, the EU Commissioner. This is absolutely huge news. It will have big ramifications. We know that Trump, speaking with European leaders before this summit, said that land concessions is something that he will look at and try to avoid. Whether Trump's rhetoric post that meeting, which we've heard, of course, overnight, Trump saying that Ukraine needs to agree to a deal because Russia is bigger. They're a big power and Ukraine are not. Will that rhetoric shift after this meeting with top European leaders? A huge development. We expect more updates, and we will, of course, bring you all the information from that meeting as it happens.
Thank you very much, Joshua Barnes, for sharing that update on the current upcoming meeting of Zelensky and Trump. Thank you. Now we move on to our next news. Indonesia has marked its 80th Independence Day with grand celebrations in Jakarta. More than 1,000 dancers from across the archipelago performed at the presidential palace, showcasing traditional dances and martial arts. Tourism Minister Widianti Putri Wardana called it an epic collaboration, highlighting the richness of Indonesia's diverse culture. The celebration also featured leading musicians including Kakra Khan, Isyana Saraswati, Rosa, and rock band Koklat. President Prabowo Subianto led the proclamation ceremony at the Merdeka Palace, followed by a flag parade and People's Festival. This year's theme, United and Sovereign, a prosperous people and advanced Indonesia, stressed unity and future development. Now for this discussion, we're joined by Gautam Mukherjee. He's a senior reporter, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you, Gautam, for staying with us. Now, Indonesia has marked 80th Independence Day celebration, highlighted both culture and diversity. So how important is it for a country like Indonesia, also India, where countries have rich area of ethnicities, cultures, languages, to emphasize unity?
Well, Indonesia and India achieved independence at very similar times. We celebrated our 79th Independence Day on the 15th of August, and here we have Indonesia celebrating its 80th. We have a good deal in common. There was a lot of warmth between the freedom fighters in Indonesia and in India at the time when both countries were struggling to throw off the colonial yoke. And there was a good deal of cooperation. That warmth persists to this day. And Indonesia, as one of the most enlightened Islamic countries, it not only has a large Islamic population, amongst the biggest, if not the biggest in the world. They are very tolerant. They have a Hindu island in Bali, and many people in Jakarta and in the mainland of Indonesia are converting from Islam to Hinduism without let or hindrance. There is no effort on the part of the government to stop it. In fact, some members of the royal family, erstwhile, have done so in the not too distant past. So it is an enlightened Islamic republic in many ways, and is tolerant of minorities. There are no atrocities, no pogroms against minorities that you find in Pakistan and Bangladesh. So they are really a different kettle of fish, and this is something they have in common with India, which also has a large minority population numbering over 200 million of one ethnic community, and then small others as well. So India wishes Indonesia well for its 80th anniversary of independence, and may the Indonesian and Indian cooperation in different fields keep growing.
Yes, happy Independence Day to both countries. Thank you very much, Gautam Mukherjee, for joining us today and sharing your insight throughout our news as a senior reporter. Now we move on to Europe. Spain continues to fight a surge of wildfires, with Galicia home to the worst season on record, as more than 47,000 hectares have been scorched. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez is expected to visit the affected region today. In Verin, a 17th century fort came close to harm. Flames rose around it, but the historic structure remained unharmed. In Vilardivos, residents risked their safety using hoses and buckets to defend homes while firefighters battled winds and heat. Let's listen in to how some residents about how they are fighting the wildfires.
Pues sí, muy agobiados porque nos llegaban las casas, gracias veu todo o pueblo que estábamos comendo ali no San Roque, e veu toda a xente que estamos moi agradecidos para a xente toda que veu todos de fora comer e viñeron todos comer coa roupa nova e viñeron todos a pagar o lume. Non chegamos, viñeron os bomberos que se portaron moi ben todos, os bomberos, e as casas non chegou.
Pues bueno, esto es agotador, porque vas a un sitio, estamos atrás en la casa, hemos estado allí, hemos limpiado todo aquello, al final las avionetas andan por todos los lados, aquí no vienen, entonces tenemos que, con los vecinos aquí, ayudarnos unos a otros. Ahora han saltado para aquí y estamos en esta otra zona y a ver si conseguimos, estamos aquí ya con cubos porque encima se nos ha ido la luz y no podemos usar las mangueras ni los motores de...
Tenía que estar en Bilbao ya trabajando, pero la casa está aquí, no puedo dejar a la familia ni al pueblo tirado. Y llevamos 4 días sin dormir, colaborando por todos los pueblos de alrededor, y hoy nos ha tocado el nuestro y aquí estamos protegiendo hoy las casas.
Many say they have worked sleep-deprived for days on end. Nationwide, 12 major wildfires rages on. 7 people have died and a fire-ravaged area the size of London is lost. The Spain State Meteorological Agency emits warnings remain in effect as temperatures soar above 40 degrees, keeping fire risk at critical levels. This is all we have time for. We will continue to bring more news updates from around the world.